The jungle was still and quiet, bathed in the soft glow of the early morning light. Dew clung to the leaves, and the songs of birds echoed faintly through the dense canopy. But the peace was deceptive, a fragile calm that hung in the air, waiting to be shattered. Today, something ancient and terrifying stalked the jungle, something that should not exist in this age. A colossal dinosaur, Tyrak, whose very footsteps shook the earth. On the other side of the jungle, Rogar, the king of this modern era, stood watch. He was a lion of immense size and power, with a golden mane that shimmered in the sunlight. He had ruled this jungle for years, his strength and cunning unmatched. But today, his reign was challenged by an enemy from a forgotten time. Tyrak was no ordinary predator. He was a relic of a bygone age, a creature of raw power and primal fury. The ground trembled as Tyrak approached, his massive form tearing through the jungle, uprooting trees with every step. The smaller animals of the jungle sensed the impending danger and scattered into hiding, their instincts screaming at them to flee. But Rogar did not flee. He stood tall, his keen eyes watching the distant tree line, waiting for the moment when his challenger would appear. Suddenly, Tyrak's enormous head broke through the foliage, his eyes glowing with a predatory hunger. His roar echoed through the jungle, a deep, earth-shaking sound that sent birds flying from the treetops. Rogar's ears twitched at the sound, but he remained calm. He had faced challengers before, but none like this. This was a battle that would determine who was the true king of the jungle. Tyrak stomped into the clearing, his immense body dwarfing everything around him. He towered over the trees, his thick, scaly skin shimmering in the sunlight. His tail, a weapon in itself, swayed behind him like a battering ram, and his teeth, sharp and deadly, glistened as he let out another deafening roar. Rogar crouched low, his muscles tensing. He knew that if he was going to defeat this monstrous creature, he would have to rely on his speed and agility. With a swift, sudden motion, he sprang into action, charging toward Tyrak with lightning speed. Tyrak, though slow compared to Rogar, was no fool. He saw the lion coming and swung his massive tail in a wide arc, aiming to crush Rogar before he could strike. The tail swept through the air with terrifying force, cutting through branches and foliage like a scythe. But Rogar was faster. He leapt into the air, narrowly avoiding the deadly tail, and twisted mid-jump. His claws extended as he aimed for Tyrak's thick, scaly neck. His claws scraped against Tyrak's hide, but the dinosaur's tough scales prevented any serious damage. Tyrak roared in anger and swung his head toward Rogar, his jaws snapping dangerously close to the lion. Rogar landed on his feet, retreating just in time to avoid Tyrak's deadly bite. The two beasts circled each other warily, their eyes locked in a deadly dance. Tyrak's massive body moved with surprising agility for its size, while Rogar's lithe form darted back and forth, always staying just out of reach. For a brief moment, the battle paused. Both Rogar and Tyrak stood still, panting heavily, their bodies covered in sweat and dirt. Rogar's sharp eyes scanned Tyrak for any sign of weakness, but the dinosaur seemed as strong as ever, despite the wounds Rogar had inflicted. Tyrak, too, was assessing his opponent. The lion was fast, far faster than any prey Tyrak had ever encountered before. But Tyrak had size and strength on his side, and he knew that one well-placed strike could end this battle. The jungle was eerily silent as the two kings sized each other up, the only sounds being their labored breaths and the faint rustling of the trees in the wind. The tension in the air was palpable. Every creature in the jungle seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move. In a flash, Rogar made his move. He darted forward, zigzagging to avoid Tyrak's tail and jaws. He aimed low, striking at Tyrak's legs in an attempt to bring the massive beast down. His claws found their mark, slicing into the dinosaur's flesh. Tyrak bellowed in pain, stumbling slightly, but he did not fall. With a roar of fury, Tyrak swung his head down, jaws open wide, snapping at Rogar. The lion dodged to the side, barely escaping the massive teeth that could have crushed him in an instant. Tyrak was relentless, his tail whipping through the air, smashing into the trees and sending splinters flying in every direction. Rogar leapt again, this time aiming for Tyrak's flank. His claws sank into the dinosaur's tough hide, but once again, they failed to penetrate deeply enough to cause serious harm. Tyrak thrashed wildly, his massive body shaking the ground with every movement. Desperate to shake the lion off, Tyrak slammed his body into a nearby tree, hoping to crush Rogar between his bulk and the thick trunk. Rogar, however, was too fast. He leapt off just in time, landing gracefully on the ground a few feet away. Both beasts were panting heavily now, their bodies battered and bruised. Blood dripped from Rogar's claws, and Tyrak's thick hide was marked with deep gashes. But neither of them showed any sign of backing down. This was a battle to the death, and they both knew it. Tyrak let out a final, deafening roar, charging toward Rogar with all his remaining strength. His massive body barreled forward, tearing through the jungle with terrifying force. Rogar, crouching low, watched carefully, his muscles coiled like springs. At the last possible moment, Rogar darted to the side, avoiding Tyrak's crushing jaws. With a burst of speed, he leapt onto Tyrak's back, his claws digging deep into the dinosaur's flesh. Tyrak roared in agony, shaking violently, but Rogar held on with grim determination. The lion's eyes were fixed on one spot, the base of Tyrak's skull, where the scales were thinner and more vulnerable. With a final powerful lunge, Rogar sank his teeth into Tyrak's neck, piercing through the tough hide and into the soft flesh beneath. Tyrak let out a final earth-shattering roar, his massive body swaying as he struggled to stay upright. His legs buckled, and with a thunderous crash the great dinosaur collapsed to the ground, sending a shockwave through the jungle. Dust and leaves flew into the air, and the jungle seemed to tremble as Tyrak fell. For a moment, there was only silence. Rogar stood over the fallen dinosaur, his chest heaving, his body battered and bruised, but victorious. Tyrak's once mighty form lay still, his glowing eyes dimming as the last of his life drained away. Rogar, exhausted but triumphant, lifted his head and let out a roar that echoed through the jungle, a sound that declared his victory to all who could hear. The jungle, which had been deathly quiet throughout the battle, slowly began to stir back to life. Birds began to sing again, and the rustle of leaves returned as the wind moved through the trees. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the jungle, Rogar turned away from the fallen Tyrak and limped back toward his territory. His body was battered and bruised, but his spirit was unbroken. He had defended his kingdom and proven that he was the true king of the jungle. Rogar walks slowly into the jungle, his silhouette fading into the mist. Behind him, Tyrak's massive body lies still, a relic of a forgotten era, now part of the jungle's history. The final shot lingers on the quiet clearing, now littered with broken trees and disturbed earth. In the end, only one king could remain, and Rogar had claimed his throne.